Thank you for joining us for this special edition of the first NBC Weekend Update, in this case a preview of the 2012 New Orleans Bowl as the UL Raging Cajuns come back to New Orleans for a second straight year to take on East Carolina. I'm Jude Young, along with Sports NOLA columnist Dan McDonald. And Dan, you follow the Cajuns on a regular basis. This was a fine follow-up season in Mark Hudspeth's second year with the program from last year's New Orleans Bowl appearance and victory, and I know that they're looking forward to coming back and trying to do it again.
Well, you talk about Coach Hudspeth and this year's team. This was a better coaching job this year than last year. Last year, everything sort of fell into place. It was a magical type season. There were no injury problems. Everything that they tried seemed like worked. The fake punts, the onside kick, everything worked. This year was a grind. They lost their starting running back first game of the year for the rest of the year. They lost last year's Bowl MVP, Blaine Gauthier, in the fourth game of the year, and he's still not back to full health. They lost both of their two top wide receivers at one point or another, where they really never got a chance to play together. This was a grind offensively. They were very fortunate that they were very solid in the offensive front all year and very solid in the defensive front. I mean, that really has become almost the strength of this team. A lot of people see all the points they put up and all the points that they do give up, but really those two spots are probably the strengths of this team. And
talking about the Gauthier injury in particular, University of Houston transfer, a sophomore from Capitol High in Baton Rouge, Terrence Broadway. Talk about being able to step up and replace a quarterback that was so successful the past year and a half under Hudspeth. What Broadway was able to do mid-season really kept this season on track and what's become a much more difficult Sun Belt conference for the Cajuns to have to deal with.
Oh, I think if somebody said at the start of the year that Terrence Broadway was going to have to play 3/4 of the year, I think a lot of people would have forecast gloom and doom for this team. But he did a magnificent job of stepping in. Having not had that much action, he saw some action at Houston as a true freshman, but really it's in a completely different system. He was able to step in. Blaine was nicked up a little bit early a couple times the first couple games and then had to take over full-time halfway through. They hit some bumps in the road. They had some struggles at the middle of the year, but with North Texas and Arkansas State. But after that, they really got on a roll offensively. They won 4 of their last 5. Probably should have won 5 of their last 5. They probably should have beaten Florida down there, which would have been by far the biggest win in the program's history. Lost on the last play of the game. But still, they won all the games they had to win to get back to this point, because there were an awful lot of people that doubted they could get here once they hit that little lull at the middle of the year. And Terrence Broadway is the big reason that they're here.
And the Cajuns will take on another 8-win foe, the Conference USA representative in this game, the East Carolina Pirates. And this is a program that's used to bowling and having success. They have the invite moving forward for their future into the Big East, or whatever happens with that league. Still an honor for them to have that opportunity. And the reason why is consistent success, and they've been good in the postseason as well. So it will pose a real challenge for the Cajuns coming up on Saturday.
Well, East Carolina is probably one game away from playing in 6 or 7 bowl games. They very easily could have been in a bowl game last year. In fact, if they'd won their last game of the season, they would have been bowl eligible all over again. That was their goal, though, to get back to that point this year, and obviously they've done it. They had a lot of very, very good wins in Conference USA play. They're a big scoring team. They are probably a more potent offensive team than the San Diego State team that played here in last year's bowl game. They've got the quarterback who is mobile but can also throw, got a very solid 1,000-yard running back, and got a receiver that maybe, as Coach Hudspeth said, is the best receiver that his team's going to will have faced all year long. So they're going to pose a lot of problems offensively. These two teams in a lot of ways are very similar. I was just noticing the betting line this week. I was noticing the over-under line is 64 for these two teams, and there's only 5 other bowl games out of 35 that has a higher over-under line. So that tells me right there that we're going to have a pretty exciting ball game.
And we can expect a close one if the game is anything like last year's matchup. You mentioned San Diego State, Brett Baer making the 50-yard field goal at the gun for a dramatic Cajuns victory. Wouldn't be surprising at all if it came down to the last possession again this year.
And if it does, I'll put my money on Brett Baer. I mean, the guy has really had such another consistent season. If he makes 3 field goals by some chance on Saturday, he'll be the NCAA's all-time leader as far as field goal accuracy among people who have attempted at least 50 field goals. But he also handles the punting duties. And I don't think a lot of people remember. They remember the field goal from last year, but I don't think they remember as much that he punted San Diego State dead on the 1-yard line twice during that game. When you make the other team have to go 99 yards to do something, that makes a big difference in the game. He's a weapon for them on special teams, but they also had an awful lot of special teams things everything go right in last year's game. They're going to have that again because that's a pretty good East Carolina team.
And finally, some fan bases would be upset or turned off to go to the same bowl site 2 years in a row. That's certainly not the case for the Raging Cajuns. A chance for a 50-plus thousand crowd coming up for this bowl game, selling more tickets to UL Lafayette than they did last year.
I don't think there's any question that we're going to get to right around 50,000. They sold 21,000 just through the UL ticket office. After last year, they sold about 18,800. You know, with the close proximity, the New Orleans area is the second biggest alumni base that UL has, next to Lafayette Parish. There are a lot of people in town, are excited about it, and the people who follow the program regularly, they're excited to come back. I tell people all the time that people in Acadiana don't let anything stand in their way of having a good time, and this is a great city to come and have a good time in. And I know that they'll be flooding into the area as the weekend gets a lot closer, and they're going to have some fun. I don't know if they'll have as much fun as last year. We'll have to wait and see, but I think there's a good possibility that they're going to have just as exciting a football game.
We can guarantee that excitement on and off the field. The Raging Cajuns of UL Lafayette taking on East Carolina, the Pirates, 11 a.m. on Saturday. Dan McDonald has a running blog all week long on sportsnola.com, tracking the Cajuns on and off the practice field, having a good time here in the Crescent City. And, of course, we'll have plenty post-game as well coming up this weekend. For Dan McDonald, I'm Jude Young. Thanks for joining us on this special First NBC Bank Report on sportsnola.com.